Hello, guys. Welcome to this edition of Three Guys with Glasses and One Girl Without Glasses. We are.
I actually need glasses.
Well, there you go. Maybe you should get while you're doing this Google Hangout. You could get a new pair of glasses. As my image disappears for a second. Anyway, we'll see if I ever return. But in the meantime, let's talk a little Homeland season 3. I almost said season 4. Season 3 finale. Full spoilers about to happen for Homeland. Scott, you reviewed this sucker. What did you think of the Homeland season finale and where it left us going forward?
I really liked it, actually, and I think everyone's been kind of disappointed by the show this season. I think that Brody. I mean, we're going to just talk spoilers, right? So,
yeah,
full spoilers here. Killing Brody, I think, was necessary, and this is maybe, I don't know, I thought this would be the popular opinion, but then reading the comments in IGN, a lot of people really seem disappointed that Brody died. I think Brody outlived his usefulness by like almost 2 full seasons. I think he had to go for the show to move on, and the writers were clearly just really in a weird place trying to figure out ways to keep Brody going. And if you look at the character's history, he's been through so many extreme, crazy, weird situations. It's just like they had to get rid of him at this point. I mean, he tried to kill the vice president. He was He
did kill the vice president.
He did.
That's right.
Killed
he did
him.
by remote control heart attack, I believe, right?
It was by a remote control heart attack. As all assassinations
he
are
was
done.
a hero in Iran. He was a suicide bomber.
He was a congressman.
He was a congressman. All these things. It's just ridiculous after a while. And I love Brody, but I think he had to go. And hopefully this gives the show a clean slate to just do something new and go in a new direction.
Mm-hmm. Also a distinguished
we lost what you were saying, Roth, but I was actually going to ask you to speak next. So, what did you think of the finale?
I think you're right. I think that, it's funny because Damian Lewis is such a great actor, and they had wonderful chemistry, so I could understand the temptation to kind of keep that going. I think that the original plan was that he was going to die in that explosion, and lo and behold, she was right. And I think that was probably the best idea, that they should have just stuck with their guns in that regard. I think it's a lesson kind of for showrunners in the future. Like, if that's the story you're supposed to tell that story no matter what, to some degree. And then it just became really convoluted and awkward to keep him there. As much as I love Damian Lewis, and he's a great asset to the show, it got so out of control and became more and more challenging to believe. But I thought that it was a great resolution. There was something really beautiful and poetic about his final passing. And you're right, Scott. Like, he'd been through so much that to some degree it just felt like peace was finally achieved for him. Yeah, mm-hmm. I mean, I think that was the best way at this point they could have done it, and it did need to happen, even though it's sad.
Yeah, it was a really effective hour of television, I thought, after a season and a half of being so uneven and kind of all over the place. I thought it was one of the best episodes they've done, actually. So it was a great send-off for Brody, for sure.
And how can Jim, you really have any true... Go ahead, sorry.
I really... I've actually kind of enjoyed this past season, flaws and all. I liked it a lot more than the second season. But, yeah, Brody's arc was done. I mean, it was done a long time ago. The fact that he only appeared in, a quarter of this season kind of shows you that there was nothing else left for him to do. He wasn't necessary anymore. And, frankly, I felt like the show may not have started as being about Carrie and Brody, but it became that, and now, to me, the show is done. That episode felt a lot like a series finale, and it could have been, but the keep Brody alive stuff is kind of up there with Showtime's decisions on Dexter, where you just don't want to face the end, and you're just going to keep pushing it into more and more implausible circumstances and sort of just treading water for as long as you can, to the detriment of the show. And I think it did take balls to finally kill him off, but to echo the opinion of everyone else, it should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim, in that it was odd and that they did wait so long that it now is going to be very difficult for them to figure out what the show is now. Because the show became about the Carrie and Brody relationship, and I think that was a disservice to both characters and to the show. And I thought Carrie was so fascinating in the first season, but by this season she was kind of driving me crazy with so many. I just can't believe the CIA would still employ her at this point because she keeps doing so many crazy things. But at
She's
the end of
failing
the
upwards.
season,
She actually got a promotion. No.
she got a
There's no
promotion,
way!
even though she keeps disobeying them. So yeah, it was weird because it did. I think the finale worked. By the way, we keep losing our video, so there's Jared and Jensen for all of you. But I think the finale worked and was very, powerful as far as the loss of Brody. But it does make it extra difficult now after 3 years to be like, what is Homeland? Now that they, if season 2 had been a whole new case, that would have been one thing. But we kept Brody. And now I think that's their biggest challenge is how do you reset going forward? Scott, what do you think? We know that they're not going to bring back the Brody family as regulars, but do you want to see them at all? Do you think she should keep the baby, or should she have given up the baby? Should they just cut out the Brody element?
Cut out the Brody baby. Not in that way.
It's a little late for that.
First, I just have to point out that she also, not only was Carrie so disobedient to Saul and to the agency, but even to Brody, his final wish was for her to not attend his execution. And so what does she do? She goes and she climbs the chain link fence. Brody, it's like she's so selfish. I
want to make sure your last image is of me screaming, disobeying you, so
right,
you can
exactly.
die in agony in every sense of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I love
his
you.
final act, Brody's final act should have been like a big eye roll, like, oh, Carrie.
Just
Thank God I'm getting rid of her. So I think you're right, Eric. Though Carrie's character definitely is going to need some rehabilitation in the new season because she was kind of underserved this year and made to be kind of annoying. As for the Brody family, I want to see them somewhat. I don't think they should be the main focus, but I
want to know if the son finishes his video game or not.
Right. Yeah. Game of Hearts.
No one wants to know anything about Chris.
Yeah. I want to see Dana again. I would expect that you can probably see Dana and Jess again. To some degree, a couple episodes here or there. I mean, one of the aspects of the finale that maybe was missing was a reaction from Dana, because they put so much attention on Dana, sort of unsuccessfully this season, but they were trying to tie her into the bigger storyline and the bigger thematic through line of the show, I think.
Do you think she'll become the baby's nanny or become part of the custodial crew at the CIA?
You know what? I get the feeling we're not gonna see much of the baby this next season.
It's going to be the little ass kicker of Homeland.
No.
Oh my God.
No.
Roth, you have some strong feelings on this baby. What are your feelings on this baby?
I think if they're smart, they'll just have her go through with it and give the baby up for adoption, to be honest, because I don't think that it's going to serve the show or that character for her to try and be raising a child. She's insane, so she may go visit the baby, after it's adopted and
climbing the chain link fence and
string me in the middle of the night to wake it up.
I agree with you, Eric. I think that the Carrie character in that first season was absolutely fascinating, and then unfortunately, in trying to do service to keeping Damian Lewis on the show, who again I love him and I think he was fantastic, they made her actions so irredeemable that it's impossible to believe that she'd be employed by anyone at this point, much less the CIA. And she is supposed to be this brilliant woman, but they've shot her down. They shot her in the arm because she was going to blow everything 16 times. And it's now become like that Saturday Night Live sketch. I don't know if you ever saw the Saturday Night Live sketch with Anne Hathaway where it was like, best in the business. And she just gets more and more insane. I'm telling you, best we got, And it's like, no, she's crazy. She couldn't do a job at Target.
How is it to explain, too, in all seriousness, though, she was thrown under the bus in front of Congress and everything. How do they publicly explain that she still works with them and runs the Istanbul bureau without exposing Javadi, who also, and I would assume they don't need to bring Javadi back next year because...
Well, this is where I totally disagree with you. I think Javadi, though evil, and we've seen a act of evil from him, is one of the most fascinating characters, up there with Abu Nazir. Abu Nazir I never thought got explored enough. I don't ever think we saw enough about that character, that person. There was a lot more to explore. And to me, the only way this show makes sense next season is if they go balls to the walls and do a regime change storyline, like full out.
So
like, show us how it's done.
Back to back?
It wasn't regime change this year, though. I mean, it was like the beginning, like the year ended with the beginnings of a regime change. Now show us how it's done. You know what I mean?
I wonder if real life events, though, will dictate otherwise, considering, I mean, I do feel like they're now suddenly become kind of beholden to stuff that's actually going on in the news.
Yeah, and that's where it gets a little tricky. I mean, Scott and I were IMing about this earlier, like, okay, there was an article that said that this was potentially dangerous storyline for our relations with Iran, right? So, like, you hope that TV isn't going to have a fictional television show, which would not have an impact on diplomacy. But, I can sort of understand that idea to some degree. I just think that that's the more interesting story to tell, like, top to bottom, how do you really, really change and affect and puppet master a regime? Like, if you're going to do it, That would be interesting to watch.
That's when you invent a fictitious country like they did in West Wing,
Yeah.
Right.
Latveria.
Yeah. Cobra Island.
Right. It is funny just to try to imagine, though, the next season, Carrie was not only promoted, she's going to be like the boss now. She's going to have her own team. Which is just very strange to imagine given her past actions.
I want her to open a bar too, Carrie's place.
Carrie's place.
The dead
We
drop.
know Saul. The producers have already said Saul will still be a part of the show, of course. So how many episodes till he comes back, and does he become part of Carrie's team? Is he now working for her? Because that's too important a relationship to not.
Well, I wonder if
have.
it won't become something. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
That's fine, Jim. Go ahead.
I was just wondering about like the F. Murray Abraham character. Could we see him now could it become a regime change within the CIA somehow where they're trying to oust Lockhart and they finally do something with the F. Murray Abraham character where people always kind of suspect maybe he's shady, maybe he's a bad guy simply because of the actor playing him, always playing villains. Even though it seems like so far he seems on the up and up, but if those guys won't become kind of the villains next season and trying to, strengthen, get Saul back in there and strengthen Carrie's hand.
Well, I think, Dar Adal, the F. Murray Abraham character, was sort of introduced as not a villain, but sort of a dark character in the second season. At the end of the second season, he was a CIA guy, but he was a sort of a black ops, like
Quinn too. Guy. He was like Quinn's handler.
Yeah, and those guys were kind of watered down this year. So it would be interesting to see them go back to some of that. I mean, neither of those characters really got to do a heck of a lot this year either. But Eric, to get back to what you were saying about Saul and Carrie, I think in all likelihood they are going to flip that dynamic so that now Saul is taking orders from Carrie. It seems like too juicy an opportunity to pass up, right?
Come on!
Right.
I
think that could be interesting. How are any of us
gonna believe that? Yeah, it could be an interesting thing if they hadn't made her completely unemployable. Much less if she was like a covert agent that was like, okay, nobody knows you exist. We don't admit to knowing even that you are alive. Fine, I could sort of believe that. Like, hey, you're great, but you're a complete live wire. We can't have you in what Jim was saying, in a public position. But to believe that she's taking on such a public role and that Saul's going to be working for her, I love the show. I think it has the potential, or I really think that it has the potential to be great, and I have loved it, and I love the first season. But I really cannot believe that.
I know. What's going to happen though with that shady law firm that was part of the whole terrorist? That kind of fell by the wayside. Could Saul's company be looking into them or something? I don't know. I feel like there were a lot of story threads from this season that just kind of fell by the wayside.
There was a lot of
I
stuff
think
that fell by the wayside. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Roth, I mean, I agree with you. It's such a hard pill to swallow, but it will be kind of a reset for the show. So we're going to it's kind of one of those things where if you keep watching Homeland, you just kind of have to accept, okay, Carrie has a great new promotion and a great new role here, and you have to kind of put aside that stuff and hope that her behavior next season is not as erratic, and maybe by just taking Brody out, because so much of her behavior was based on trying to save Brody, trying to redeem Brody, and it made her do things that, again, we don't think that the CIA would ever keep her on with. But now that Brody's gone, I can only hope that now we can maybe get things a little more even with the character.
I just don't want it to turn into like Baby Boom, but with spies now, where she's like, how does she do it? How does she balance work and motherhood?
I don't think that. I don't think, like I said, I don't think we're going to see much of the baby. Who knows? But I think around the end of the second season, I finally came to terms with the fact that Homeland is not as realistic as it was in the first season. I mean, it's really over the top and basically ridiculous. It's TV spy stuff. Whereas in the first season, it had a modicum of feeling like it might have been real. And I think now I've just kind of reached the point where it's like, Brody is this guy who's done all these ridiculous things. Carrie can badmouth. Carrie could go bitch slap the president and get away with it. I almost think we can't even criticize the show for that stuff anymore. But
they were like one more action away from like welding stuff together, like making a van out of like household items or something. A-Team style.
I hope the poster for season 4 is Carrie holding the baby under one arm and slapping the president with her other hand.
All right. If it's that, I am 100% back on board with the series. I mean, I think you're right, Scott.
Putting the home into Homeland.
I think with any show that eventually you just have to kind of accept it, and you're right too, Eric. You have to accept it for what it is, and if this is the reset, then hopefully at least they'll make it make sense within that reset. But I don't think she can continue to have this kind of erratic behavior, and there also has to be some kind of explanation for why she's got her disorder under control, because the thing is, the fact is you can't even, if you are bipolar to that degree, you can't even be in the military, much less the CIA. They're just not going to have you. My brother was in the Marines.
That's the power of Carrie.
Yeah, but I'm saying my brother was in the Marines. He was an embassy guard. They did an extensive background check on him, and that would have been a thing that would have not allowed him to have that job. So but go handle negotiations and relations with the most volatile country we are relating with now on Earth. Yes.
What it comes down to is that the first season was so amazing that everything that has followed is just somewhat more disappointing. So if season 1 of Homeland was what we just got in season 3, most of us might not even have watched, right? Or we might have tuned out after.
I just feel like this was basically a 1-season show that is now being pulled into 4 seasons.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the UK has short-lived TV series, is they know when to walk away, and American television doesn't seem to know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping, like you said, I think you evoked Dexter earlier, Jim.
Yeah.
If there is a Homeland season 8, it's like, all right, something's gone, because at this point
she's going to need a foil though, like with Brody gone, and I don't see Quinn stepping up to the plate to fill that void, because he just went through whining about how much the agency makes you give, like having his Bourne moment, and saying how he wanted to quit and all that stuff because he had shot the kid in the earlier mission and yada yada. And I mean, I feel like she needs, Carrie being Carrie, she needs somebody who's going to be from outside that's going to challenge her to, I don't know, does it become about her and Saul? Do they start feeling differently about each other?
No.
I hope not.
No.
I don't want that, but I'm just saying.
Where do you come up with this?
You guys remember in the first season? Remember in the first season, there was a moment where Carrie kind of put the moves on Saul?
Yeah. He didn't like that.
Which was horrific. That. I mean, everyone, Carrie, Saul, and the audience all felt equally horrific about that moment. So hopefully it doesn't happen again.
His wife is certainly looking quite refreshed now, though, isn't she?
She is.
Saul's been taking care of business.
I mean, I think if we look at this, and again, like we're sounding very negative, but I've certainly, I enjoyed this season more than the second, and I think that the show still has, a lot going for it, particularly in terms of its actors. I mean, this cast is incredible. She deserves all the accolades she's gotten, as does Mandy Patinkin, obviously. But if this is a reboot, then let's hope that it really is a reboot and a reset, and we see some changes.
I hope that she gets a colleague who's even nuttier than she is, and so she can see what a handful it is to have to deal with that. Now that she's in charge, she gets like the loopiest agent possible, and it's like, oh my God, I'm a real pain in the ass. I got to get my shit together.
Who would it be? Like Amy Poehler? They would.
Yeah, it should be Amy Poehler.
That would be amazing.
I ban you. I either want you to be head writer of the most amazing, insane series on Earth, or just banned entirely from the Homeland writing room.
That's right.
All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. We've had a lot of amazing ideas, though, I think. But let us know in the comments what you think. Did you love this season? Did you hate it? And what do you think going forward about Homeland? Where it can go? Thanks, and keep it tuned here at IGN.com.